There we go, we're back. It's Sunday, and that means it's warrior mode time with me, the co host, Kev Baker, and our main man, the spiritual warrior, Bill Bean himself. Another week has passed. Bill, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, brother. It's just amazing how fast time is going by, and it just seems like a couple of days ago when we did the previous show. It's amazing.
It really is, and tonight it's going to be familiar territory for you because we're going to be revisiting a 2019 episode of the Holzer Files that you were a part of. We're going to be
Yeah.
bringing on a special guest in just a moment, but before we get anywhere, Bill, maybe it'd be best to start today with everything that's going on in the world. Another crazy week behind us, another crazy week awaits us. Best time to start off with sharing a prayer with everyone out there, really to set the tone, because tonight's topic that we're going to be getting into with Lydia, this takes us toe to toe again with these dark forces, brother.
Yeah, very true. And Kev and I absolutely and wholeheartedly thank all of you for tuning in and sticking with us throughout these shows. We really appreciate it. I know I can speak for him on this. And I'd like to begin with a prayer. And as all of you know, I mean, we're in such perilous times now. It makes my heart heavy. It really does, to see so much pain and suffering and destruction that is taking place now, and a total disregard for law and everything that is good and everything that is orderly. So let us start with this prayer. Father, I thank you and praise you for this blessed and appointed time. And I ask that you bless our world. And I ask, Father, that you bring peace. I know, I can only imagine how upset you must be to see all of us, your children, that are in such struggle and strife these days, and the high wickedness that is taking place on the earth, and all of the chaotic things and the total disregard for law and order, and the total disregard for you as well from some of these people. And I'm very sorry to say that. And I pray for them, Father. I pray that they'll come back to you and repent and get on their knees and come back to you and accept your Son, Yeshua Jesus the Christ, as their Savior. You working through him. And Father, I ask that you bless everyone that is tuning in right now. Bless them with an abundance of love, peace, joy, good health, and prosperity for life. And keep them in your hedge of protection as well, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for life. We give you the praise and the thanks and the glory, Father, forevermore, in Jesus' name.
Thank you, Bill. So, before we get going today, I just want to speak to you briefly about what's been going on over in the States. Again, you know, we've had another week. We've got the autonomous zone up and running, whatever people make of that. We've also had our favourite politician, the Trumpster, with his protest, or his rally yesterday that turned into a bit of a protest. What's your take on what's going on in America this week then, Bill?
Well, I wish I could tell you that it's getting better, but unfortunately, things are escalating in the wrong direction. We have now, some are calling a second wave. I'm not sure of that, but I can tell you this, that in many of our states now, in most of our states in the nation, there is a big uptick in the COVID cases, and it does not look good at all. And I continue to pray every day that God will just kill this thing and take it from off of the face of the earth. But that in itself is not good. And then the social unrest, the downright high wickedness that is taking place, the spirit of rebellion. And the scriptures tell us the spirit of rebellion is witchcraft. And so we have a spirit of rebellion taking place in America and the world as well. You have plenty over there in the UK as well. And it is a total disregard and total lack of regard for the law. And furthermore, we have our leaders that are standing by and either joining in with this or just simply allowing it to happen. Either way, it is not good for the decent, hardworking people of America and the UK and the world, the places in the world that are affected by this. And I find it stunning to me that even last night I watched the Trump rally, and I'm trying to be maybe kind or guarded with my words, what I want to say. I just find it astounding that, and many people would say to me, well, what do you want him to do? His hands are tied. No, they're not. The president has power above all. And the president can take steps and measures. And furthermore, I have read some of the measures that can be taken on a federal level that could activate powers to go in and engage these domestic terrorists and put a stop to all of this. I can assure you of this, Kev. If I were the guy in charge, the president or the leader or whatever I would be called, I would have that stopped. It would have been stopped inside of the first 48 hours that it was taking place. Now, I love all people. I have nothing against anybody. But when I see what I'm seeing, especially in America, where elderly people are being viciously assaulted, some killed, by these domestic terrorists, that's, you look at that and I say to myself, just that alone, why wouldn't the president step into this and say, look, we're putting a stop to this? He is derelict in his duties, if you ask me, because as the commander in chief, you have a responsibility and obligation to the people. And just like a police officer, you're supposed to protect and serve. I'm not seeing that, Kev. And look, I supported Donald J. Trump 1,000,000% to the point where I got death threats for supporting him. I was on the Trump train and I stood behind him through thick and through thin. But then I started to see some things, and I'm seeing them very clearly now. And I wish, and I challenge him, if you're watching this, President Trump, I challenge you, make a liar out of me. Show the people how wrong I am about what I'm saying. Do your job. Do your job. And your job, part of your job, is to be a protector of all people. And you're supposed to be the leader of the free world. Do your job. Make a liar out of me. Make me look foolish. I wish you would.
Bill, these autonomous zones, and I have to give Max Egan credit for pointing this out. He's absolutely correct. We've talked often about the association of Trump and Israel, and in particular Jared Kushner, right?
Yeah.
And right now, with this autonomous zone, and all of the autonomous zones that will follow it, because there'll be more coming in these cities, I imagine, with Antifa and all the Black Lives Matter and everything going on. But what you're really looking at there is America getting a lot more like Israel, right? Because all these little autonomous zones are no different from the Gaza Strip and the Palestinians that are in there. And I tell you, just be very careful. Yeah, just be very careful. You know what you wish for. And I would love to see us breaking away from the system, Bill, coming up with something completely new, going into little communities. Yeah, but not like we're seeing here. No, this is a very dangerous time indeed.
It's getting to the point of insanity, Kev, because now, I mean, if you wear a Hawaiian shirt, you're racist. If you, they want to remove all these statues. They are removing them. They're changing names and titles. They are now, I heard that, where was it? I see so much, and I was up late last night studying again. Something with the title of chief. They feel that is offensive, so they want to get rid of that word altogether now. They're changing the Aunt Jemima thing and Uncle Ben's rice and all this kind of stuff. And it is, where does this end? And where this ends, it is not going to be good. That's for sure. And I want peace for everybody. I love everybody. I've helped people from all races and colors and backgrounds from all over this world, and I will continue to do so. I have no axe to grind against anybody. However, my axe, if there is something to grind, it is good versus evil, right versus wrong. And every single person on this earth should have a moral compass to know what is right and what is wrong. And when I see people attacking elderly people, I've seen some of the most horrific clips, Kev. And then I heard that a man in New York was washing his car and someone came up from behind, shot him in the head and killed him. A man was in a wheelchair and they ripped him out of the wheelchair and viciously beat him. An elderly man was in the grocery store walking down the aisle, wasn't bothering anybody, and they came up from behind and hit him in the head and kicked him and beat him. This is happening all over America now.
Yeah, it's I mean, this is just another little symptom of the times we're in, right? And these people that are out protesting, and it's beyond protesting, it's rioting, it's breaking the law, but they should really look at who's cheering them on. You know, it's the 1%ers out there that are really cheering them on. The same people that have formed the very systems that they say they're opposed to and they're trying to pull down. These are the very same people cheering them on and telling them to go for it. You're being used as pawns.
Yeah.
They're going to be the first people to go. They will. They'll be the first people to go when this new system that they are ushering in, they'll be the first ones to be done away with.
I'm going to give you an example. This is how bad this is now. There are police departments around America, including one in Baltimore County, which is just outside of Baltimore City. And they have the directive now that they are not to get involved or interfere in any of these types of protests. So they have to allow these people, if they want to be anarchists and if they want to destroy properties and beat and rob people and kill people, they can't get involved. So when you see things like that, at some point you would think that the leader of the free world, the commander-in-chief, it is his responsibility and obligation on behalf of the American people, many of whom supported him or still support him despite being beaten and nearly killed. It is his duty to help the people, especially the people that are being victimized. And what I heard, among other things, in that rally last night, many times I heard that he mentioned how handsome he is, and he mentioned that he has the best cars and the best boats and planes and the best homes and all that. Well, good for you. We don't care what you have, who you are, or how great you think you are. You have a responsibility and obligation to the American people to be the leader and to rule over the people fairly and justly, and to be a help and a protector for and of the people. So therefore, you should be using any means necessary to bring back law and order and stabilize. And furthermore, I have yet to hear any type of, here he gave his rally thing last night. He hasn't addressed the nation in trying to bring the nation back together and heal this gigantic divide that is now taking place. And for the people who think that this is, racially motivated, and if you're playing into that, and if you are one of these domestic terrorists that are playing into that, and we're going to get those white people, you're sadly mistaken. This is not about race. This is not about black and white. This is about an agenda to destabilize the world for this type of, like you said, Kev, a reset type of thing, a reprogramming, erasing history, and having a new world order, which is order out of chaos. So I urge you, if any of you out there are doing these types of things and you're watching now, I urge you to take a deep breath, step back, and think. Use your brain and break the spell and the mind programming that you're under, and do some thinking and researching as well, and you soon will have a whole new understanding of life and the situation that is taking place.
You have to look at history, and look at Egypt. When one dynasty falls, another comes in. The statues come down, they're defaced, the new ones go up. It's no different from where we are now. The only difference being that the new world order that is set to unveil itself, it's the same characters that are causing all of this in the first place.
Correct.
And when we come out the other side, this is them literally, in my opinion, if we want to take it to the spiritual Christian side of things, this is your beast system. That this is
I agree.
that Luciferian satanic dark system. How do I know that? Because you only have to look at what the people pushing it are into. It doesn't matter what you're into, it doesn't matter what I'm into. These people are into some pretty shady, dark stuff. And today...
And they're showing us, Kev, they're showing us in plain sight.
Exactly. We're going to get into something after we've spoke to Lydia, something quite relevant. In fact, no, I'll bring it up right now because it fits here. I'm talking about the statues coming down and everything else that's going on, and that's over here as well. And it's global because this is a global system. Within a generation, all of the old world that we're now transitioning from, it'll all be gone. Because that's how quickly they can change history, you see. And
I agree.
What do we see at this time? What have we seen in the past couple of years? Yours truly, every time there was a story about it. Remember the Temple of Satan? They're the only people I know that have been putting up new statues in the past, 3 or 4 years? And then today...
Nobody's bothering them, though, are they?
Exactly. And then today, now, I'm not naive, and I know there's a lot of psyops, and a lot of disinformation, misinformation right now. I'm only going to present this to you, and like we always do on my own show, I provide, you can decide. But there is a Facebook page out there right now promoting more marches today. Not for Black Lives Matter. Maybe this should be called Dark Forces Matter. Because over here, and we'll get to Lydia in just a moment, folks, we have not forgot about her. Take a look at that. The Disciples of Lucifer HQ. And it says on the about here, we are the disciples of Lucifer, and we're here to fulfill the prophecies of Revelation and build a foundation to form a one-world government. And there's over 1,500 people liked it. And what it is a list of, if you go to the actual events where I was, there's a list of marches that will be taking place. They say today, but like I say, and I'm being as honest as I can be, I don't know the veracity of that page because we see both sides, playing shenanigans, false flagging it basically, putting something up to make the other side look bad. We're living in an age now where it's hard to believe anything our eyes show us, and that in itself is a sign of the times.
Yeah, and again, you hit the nail on the head, and all one has to do is open the Bible and read Revelation and some other places, even some of the Old Testament books, and you will find this very thing was taking place back then. So history does repeat itself. The big wheel is going round and round, and we've clicked in to one of these periods now to where the curtain is once again coming down.
I think, Bill, that is also why we see an abundance of the Mandela effects picking up pace at this time.
Yeah.
And if I may, please, folks, don't forget my good friend Chris Anatra. He is having this year's International Mandela Effects Conference. It's free right now. You can watch it online. I had a brilliant conversation with him on Friday. A really nice guy. And in his latest video, Moon Angel, he's talking about lower angels, archangels, angels that command legions of other good energy angels as well, and how that all ties into the holographic nature of our reality and the Mandela effect. Talk about bringing the spiritual and the science together, Bill.
Yeah, for sure.
Brilliant work. So
That sounds like that's going to be a great show for sure. I'll have to tune into that.
yeah, it's kind of the first time he's gone down that line, and I really like Chris. He's trying to bring the science to it, but now after today's video, he's just totally sideswiped me by bringing this kind of spiritual angle to it as well. Something that you've been coming from the whole time, Bill.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, because it is. It is what it is. And there's no way that you could say otherwise. This is absolutely spiritual in nature, even for those out there who don't believe. And there might be somebody that's with us on the show right now that says, I don't believe in any of this rubbish and I don't believe in God or whatever. And that's fine. That's your right to feel that way. However, just take a step back and step outside of your box and take a look at what's going on in our world, and then read the book of Revelation, and you'll see that these things that are talked about, that were talked about in there, some of these things are unfolding before our eyes. There's no way to deny it.
Absolutely. I'm just writing down a question for you for after we've finished with our special guest today, before I forget
Sure.
it. Uh, right, so Bill, let me take you back then to how you first came to meet Lydia and
Yeah.
your appearance on the Holzer files. And while you're doing that, I'll connect Lydia to the call here. And
Sure.
take us back then, Bill, to how this came about.
Well, it was back in 2019, last year. I had received a message from my good friend Dave Schrader, who is the star of the Holzer Files, and he said that he had a very disturbing case in Missouri that involved this lady that was having some serious problems, what he believed to be demonic problems. And so Dave and I talked, and then he had the producers call me, and we talked and got everything set. And I flew out there, spent 3 nights, 4 days and 3 nights out there, and didn't meet Lydia until the last night of shooting. And we were in a church in this little town in Missouri. And I actually had performed an exorcism, spiritual deliverance over her in that church, and God worked through me to deliver her. But prior to that, I was for the shoot, I was at her residence, didn't go inside, and they did not have us to interact at all. Yet, at one point, she had walked past in between the shooting. She had walked by, and I could feel, Kev, I could feel the evil that was attached to her. She had very strong evil attached to her, and it was in her home, and it was affecting her and her children and people that were close to her. And I have to say to you that I believe that, and Lydia, I think will confirm this, that had it gone on much longer, she was already in a bad place, and it could have put her in a disastrous place of destruction. So the timing was perfect. I thank God and praise God for working through me. I thank God and praise God for having Dave Schrader to contact me to help her. And so since that time, I have been in regular contact with her, and I'm overjoyed to tell you that she's overcome all of this by the power of God, and she's doing very well. So with that, we'll let her tell her story.
There we go. Lydia, are you on the line?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey, Lydia, it's good to talk to you. I've got Bill here with me.
Hi, Lydia.
Yep.
So, Lydia, Bill was just telling us there about how he first came in contact with you. And I know you've called into the Kev Baker show before, but let's just pretend that I know nothing about you, okay? And
Okay.
talk to me about what it was that led you to come into contact with the Holzer Files and Bill Bean.
So first, in December of 2017, I went to sleep like I normally would, and I woke up the next morning, and there was like a huge hand had grabbed my arm. And so there was bruises that went from by my wrist, and it had 4 fingers and a thumb, and the thumb ended on like the top part of your upper arm. And so then whenever I got home that night, I took a picture of it before I left. And then whenever I got home, I took another picture. And the bruising between like 8 hours was incredible. And it would generally take like 4 days for it to even start to turn that color, because it went from like the yellowish to darker purple within 8 hours. And then 2 days later, like the bruises just stuck around, and they were there for, I would say, at least 2 weeks. And then it just, more and more stuff started happening throughout the next 18 months.
Lydia, see, up until that point in your life, had you ever had any other dealings with the paranormal, anything like that at all?
I never really knew, because it was never talked about where I grew up. Like where I grew up, there's maybe 2,000 people total, and then I lived 10 miles outside of that on a farm. But looking back, it would make sense that I had dealt with paranormal then, but I blocked out most of my childhood up until I turned 18 and I left home.
Okay.
Like my mom was really abusive, and so I had to deal with that a lot. And so after I turned 18 and graduated high school, I moved an hour and a half away.
Now, Bill, let me bring you in here, because this is a common thread that we find in a lot of these stories, where there is some kind of childhood trauma. Yeah, are you there?
You hear that, Kev?
I hear something weird, like talking.
Yeah, it's the copter again.
Well,
and a weird thing happened earlier today. My wife and I have an elderly friend that we help every Sunday, and I was over at her house, and this black copter flew over me so low, I mean directly over me today. So these things, they come and they go, but I'm sorry, Lydia, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just had to interject that because I knew Kev was probably hearing it on his end.
Well, Bill...
No, that's okay.
Let me just get your thoughts on that as well, Bill, because we often talk about how many of the cases you deal with, there is a kind of troubled childhood.
Yeah.
And it does, for whatever reason, and I don't know if this will come out in Lydia's case, but sometimes that seems to be almost the first act in one of these kind of, not possessions, but for somebody to be targeted, right?
Yeah, and I would say that she was really not too far away from a possession. She was severely oppressed and, had these attachments, and there were many things, legal rights and demonic strongholds on her, even family bloodline curses, and God worked through me to break all of them off of her. But yeah, she had this continued. It could have really gone in that direction of a full possession. Praise God that it didn't, but she was in a really bad way. And yeah, she suffered as a child, and that does open the doorway when high levels of stress and trauma are being inflicted against a child. These demonic forces are not only working through the perpetrator, but then they will literally jump onto the victim because of blood and secretions that come out of the pineal gland and the adrenal glands. And demons love that. It's like candy to them. And so they will stay on the person until someone like me, God working through me, or whatever agent of God it may be, God working through them to get rid of those demons.
So, Lydia, after you'd had these bruises then, I mean, What did you think initially? I mean, what did you put it down to?
That's when I freaked out, was whenever I got the bruises. Before, there would be like lights that turned on and off in the house, but nobody ever got hurt. So I could chalk some of that up to small things. And then my oldest son, whenever he was 2, he was in his bedroom here, and he was having a full conversation, which Jordan's always done everything extremely early. He talked early, walked early. And whenever I went in and asked him who he was talking to, he told me that he was talking to Grandpa Houston. My Grandpa Houston died a year before I got pregnant with Jordan.
Oh, wow.
I went and I took a photo of my grandpa, and then I found photos of older men that looked similar to him, and I laid them all out, and Jordan picked out which one was my grandpa, because I had not taken him back home except for the first month that he was born. We went to a church and did a baby shower there, but he had not been around any of my relatives from my mom's side. There were no photos that he saw of my grandpa prior to me basically doing a lineup of older gentlemen, and he picked out who my grandpa was. And at that time, I just thought it was because they're younger and connected to the spirit world, but then nothing happened after that, and it was 14 years later when the bruises started.
Wow. Now, Bill, when you hear about that kind of a child seeing a relative like that, no way that child could have known them. Is that the relative in your opinion, Bill? Or is that maybe something masquerading for lack of a better term?
In some cases, yes, I do believe that God can and does allow our relatives to come back and check with us once in a while. However, the flip side of that is the devil looks for those types of openings to where he can assign his demons to go and become a familiar spirit, which is taking the shape and the form and the likeness and appearance and even the voice of our long lost loved ones. Now, in that case, I pray that it was the long lost loved one, and then perhaps with God allowing our loved ones to come through in that way, when the dimensional doorway opens, perhaps some of those demons can sneak in behind and then take the shape and the form after that and then create havoc. So this is where spiritual discernment really comes in. We have to really rely, and the only way we can have this type of sharp, focused spiritual discernment is to have that really close connection with God, the real and authentic relationship with him. And as part of the blessings that he bestows upon us as a result of that relationship is a very high and strong and sharp spiritual discernment.
So, Lydia, let me pick up where we left off then. The 14 years pass and the bruises start. Let's take it from there.
Okay, so when Jordan talked to my grandpa, he was 2. The light flickering on and off started 6 years after that, and it only happened twice. So it was one of those where you can wonder if it was paranormal then or if there was just a short. Then whenever the bruises started, that was December of 2017. And then I sent a picture of where I'm in white in my kitchen, and that was before Christmas of December of 2017. Then I sent a photo of 30 days later where I'm in like a tank top and shorts, and I lost about 40 to 45 pounds in under 30 days. And then it just progressively got worse. Like, I started to get the dark circles around my eyes. My face started to get sunken in more. My collarbones stuck out, and I wasn't changing anything that I was eating. I wasn't exercising anymore because I had my second back surgery in July of 2017. So there was a lot of restrictions that I had. So it's not like I was running or working out. It was just rapid weight loss. And then even if I ate like ice cream every day or junk food, as well as eating the regular 3 meals a day, I still just kept losing weight the entire time. Then there was more bruises until finally the biggest one was whenever the cabinet door in my kitchen was ripped off and thrown 7 feet away, where it hit my island and fell on the kitchen floor. And that, I mean, like, it was progressively getting more and more scary. I wrote to anybody and everybody
Lydia,
that I could find.
while you're talking about that, I've put a picture in between myself and Bill here, which it shows basically that the hinges have been snapped clean off the door, right?
The top hinge, it's like somebody unscrewed it because they're still attached to the actual door. Those screws I never found. The bottom hinge, it looks like it's pried apart, and that's how it was ripped off of the cabinet.
Now, Bill, you're sitting there nodding. Is
Yeah.
this, I mean, the weight loss in Lydia, firstly, is that something that's familiar in many of your cases? Is that symptomatic of something big time?
And some, yeah, absolutely, because, this is part of a demonic stronghold and now a demonic attack. So before anybody says, oh, what's he talking about? So now people that lose weight are under demonic attack. No, I'm not saying that. What I am saying is that when people have dramatic changes in their life, and that includes a dramatic weight loss, something is definitely not right. If the person's not trying to lose weight, and then all of a sudden they are having this dramatic weight loss, that's not good. And so at that point, there's either some type of severe illness taking place or some type of demonic stronghold that has come upon the person to create this type of havoc. And Lydia, so after that incident, what took place? What was the next thing after that?
Well, actually, between the bruises was whenever I started getting scratches. And I would wake up and there would be scratches just covering my whole back. There were other days when I would go to sleep and it pretty much like between January 18th, Chase's birthday, and the middle of February was whenever I would go to bed and I would wake up and there's a picture of where the middle section of my back is burnt.
Yeah.
So it's not like I had been outside. It's not like I'd been in the sun at all, but there's an entire middle section that's burnt. Then there's a photo where the top half is burnt, and then there's like scratches in the middle of my back, and then the lower back is fine. Then there was one from like March that I went back and I found where my cousins or my nieces and nephews had come to visit me, and I cut them out of it, and I'm in like a blue shirt, and even there, like, it just, you can tell my face just looks more and more sunken in, and my eyes just get darker and darker, and that's one that had never been shown before either. That was in February. The one that's up now where there's the middle part where it's extremely red, and it was like a sunburn, and it felt like a sunburn, and then there's that scratch in there.
Yeah.
And but I mean, I can't reach any of the areas.
No, that's really bizarre. I mean, some
But
people.
it's indicative, Kev.
Yeah.
It's indicative of an attack and a physical attack that does take place from time to time on people from these entities, and I'm convinced, sorely based on my experience, with hundreds of cases now, that in a lot of these cases where the people are being physically attacked or other things, sexual abuse or whatever it may be, I think that those reptilians are part of this. And again, we've talked about it before, Kev, and I'll mention it again, that I feel that they are part of the satanic kingdom. And when they are present, they do some really disgusting things to people. And so I have seen scratch marks on people that lead me to believe that it is, in fact, these reptilian entities. And another thing that they do from time to time, and this, I've had many cases like this, including the Intenzo case, to where they would leave the fingers on the mirror with the little claws at the end of them. And this is a calling card to show the person that it's them, because they want to keep the person in fear. Kev, how many times have we talked about high frequency, high vibration, and when people are on low, this is what happens? And Lydia, at this point, certainly was on low frequency and low vibration, and as she was being pulled further and further down, the attacks were increasing on her.
And people, they sometimes roll their eyes when it comes to the whole reptilian thing. But then yesterday, I had on some of my wonderful friends from down under. Big shout out to Donnie and Luna. And they come from the original people of Australia. And to this day, Bill, to this day, they keep a special stick right at the back door. And it's got a little spearhead on the top of it. And do you know what that's for? That's to ward off the crocodile man.
There you go.
So, these things are far more realer than some people would like to appreciate. But that doesn't mean, just because you might think it's not real, I would never wish anyone to have their own paranormal experience to prove it. All I would encourage people to do is have an open mind. So, Lydia, sorry to butt in there, but I hate to say I'm enjoying your story, because you're a victim in all of this, but
not anymore.
Yeah,
she's a victor now. She was a victim, but she's a victor now.
Very good point. Now, Lydia, I'm going to tell the audience, and I'm going to explain to them what we had a little chat about via Messenger today. Lydia has sent me a whole list of images of her son. Now, due to privacy and discretion, I've decided not to show them on the show because of multiple reasons. And I know I really I'm asking you to take me at face value here, but I think you'll know me long enough to know that these images show multiple bruises, what appears to be markings, and I hope the audience, and I think you will understand why, because of recent things that have gone on YouTube and everything else, I don't think this is the best place to show pictures of anyone's child. And that's another piece of this story, Lydia, right? Because these bruises, it's not just you that's been attacked, is it?
Right. First, it started out with just me, and then the kids started getting bruises. Jordan started staying more with his aunt because his middle school started at 7 a.m. Chase's started at 8. And since she worked at his school, he started staying at her house. Otherwise, I would drive across town, drop him off, drive back across town, drop Chase off, and then drive 2 blocks from Jordan's school to go to work. So he started staying at his aunt's house more, and then he wasn't being affected while he was there. But then Chase started getting big bruises on his legs, and I would ask his dad, did he hit something at your house? Because he would go over there for 6 hours one day and then 2 hours 2 other days, and he's like, no. And so I would start taking photos of Chase's legs before he left, just to make sure whenever it got to the point where he started spending the night at his dad's house. But he would have just big bruises all over his legs. And then I was being bruised at one point, which I blocked out a lot of stuff, but there's a bunch of memories that are starting to come back even from whenever I was a child. And there was one point where I was being pulled out of my bed, and I was like 6 or 7, and then I hid under the covers. And whenever they did come out and investigate during the interview, I was telling them about this dream of where. So I don't know what just happened,
I
but
have no
like
idea.
my paper shredder went off.
Yeah, you're still there, but that was weird. Did you hear all that, Bill?
I did. It sounded like somebody was trying to message or something. Wow. Well, we bind and rebuke that by the mighty power of Yahweh. In Jesus' name, we're not having any parts of that. So we don't care for the petty disruptions. We're not going to have it. We're going to continue to move forward no matter what.
Amen. But so I had told them I had this dream for 7 nights before they got here, and I'm between the age of like 4 and 6, and then I was hiding underneath my blanket, which I didn't do because I had an irrational fear that I'm going to suffocate. Like, even today, I won't put my head under the blanket unless it's like a tent or set up like a huge tent. But I, in my dream, there's something outside of my blanket. I'm just sitting there praying for it to go away, whatever it is. And whenever they did the interview, they made me explain that dream like 7 different times. And then they said, that's crazy. I've never had a shared dream experience before, but I had your dream for the last 7 nights.
So, what do you think of that, Kev?
So, wait a minute, just to get this straight. So, somebody on the show had the same dream as you?
Yeah, the host. It's like I sent him the dream of watching myself as a child, which was coming back as so it was a memory coming back through a dream that I sent to the host. So he watched my dream in his dream.
Oh, Bill. Wow, brother. And Lydia's talking there about how she's almost claustrophobic with the covers. And that probably stems from whatever it is that's coming back as a child, right? When she's been hiding under there.
Yeah, it's fear-based, trauma-based types of thoughts and memories that are coming back because she had so many of those things blocked out for so long. And furthermore, this is part of her purging as well. So these things have to manifest and come back in order to be purged out. So this is part of her spiritual growth and moving forward, that these things are manifesting. And I'm glad that they are, so they can be purged from her. And just the more that they come back, the more free she becomes and the more empowered she becomes, and she can just continue to move forward in her life.
Absolutely. So, Lydia, let's go back to you. So, what did the host make of the fact that you were sharing the stream? It's something totally new to the host. What did he make of it?
He didn't really say much beyond that was the first time that he'd ever had a shared dream experience. And then he went forward with more of his questions. And then he tried to recreate the hand, like the fingerprints that were on my arm. And he's like, I'm almost 7 foot tall, or maybe he's just over 7 foot. I can't remember now. But he's like, even with my hands spread out, I cannot get my fingers close enough to even stretch them apart close enough to where the bruises are on your arm, let alone then try and grab it hard enough that it would even create a bruise.
Now, I'm just going to bring up the bruise on the arm picture just now. There you see it there. That's right down at the wrist, and then you can see a bit right up at the joint here as well, Bill. That would have to be some really kind of big kind of hand, right?
Gigantic. I mean, if that's if that's all in one grab, you better believe it. It would have to be a gigantic hand. And again, this is where the Nephilim type of demon could come into this. That it's said that some demons are the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim. Well, It is possible. I have to tell you that I have photographs that I took years ago of two gigantic beings in the photograph. Now, they weren't Bigfoot because these were, and perhaps related to Bigfoot, I'll say that, but they were more of a spiritual nature in the way that the photographs, in the way that they presented themselves in the photographs, but they look like giants nonetheless. And they were in this white ectoplasm, misty type of substance, and that's how they manifested. But it's very clear these were two giants in the photograph with gigantic faces. So it is possible that these types of entities could come through and create that type of situation for someone.
This is really fascinating, Lydia. I thank you for your time calling in, sharing this with us. But I'm going to come back to you, and let's talk more about then the program where you met Bill, how that all kind of went.
Okay, because there were other things that happened after the cabinet door and before they got here, like.
So did it start to pick up in frequency? Did you feel like it was getting more intense, Lydia?
It got more intense, and it just kept getting more and more intense until they got here. And even then, that was an extremely intense experience itself.
Yeah, I'll
Before
say.
they did the reveal.
I agree with Lydia 100%. It was a very, let's say it like this. Again, I'm against no one, and I've done many TV shows and probably will do more in the future. However, it's a very delicate balance between TV and reality. And when you are trying to capture this type of reality on TV, it doesn't go so well. And so what it did, in my opinion, and again, I'm very grateful to Dave Schrader and the Holzer Files for reaching out to me to assist Lydia. But the process was very difficult for her because you are, just think about it, being in her shoes, suffering in the way that she was. And now she is put in the middle of this TV production, which this was a large production, Kev. This was not small at all. And Lydia can corroborate what I'm saying. There were many production trucks there, a lot of people, on this production team. It was chaotic. So it was adding to her stress level. So I could understand how she would be just ready to burst at a certain point due to the level of stress that was taking place. So I'm very thankful that even though it was a tremendously stressful situation for her, the end result was that God worked through me to free her from all of this. So I'm so thankful to God that he did that, and so happy for her now.
Now, Lydia, how did the TV show go from your point of view then? What did you think of how it went?
So, well, during the interview, that was like a 5-hour-long interview where they asked me a lot of questions, had me go over what happened, and even at that point, okay, actually, like a month before they got here, they asked if I had noticed any strange creature, like was there a lot of flies or insects, and I really hadn't, other than it's called a cave cricket, but it's like a mix between a spider and a cricket that had a baby.
That is absolutely, that is, for me, I hate anything that's got more than 4 legs. Anything with more than 4 legs, Bill, is not natural. You need to hit it with a shoe immediately. I would be terrified if I seen that, Lydia.
I have seen what Lydia's describing.
And, like, those freaked me out. And then there were these, like, little centipede things, which I found out that they are really good. And the bottom photo is the centipede things. And apparently they eat, like, other bugs, and they'll eat cockroaches. And I don't know. They're supposed to be good, but I can't remember what all they do. But the top one, I saw, like, 3 or 4 of those. randomly in my house, but they're only supposed to be where it's like dark and moist areas. And they freaked me out because I hate spiders. I hate snakes. And which has also reminded me of whenever I was a kid, I was swimming in a pond that we had behind our house, and we did that all the time. I mean, like, it was a daily thing. And, like, I knew I had to get out of the pond, and I did. And then as soon as I made it back to the bank, I looked at where I'd just been swimming, and there was, like, a 7-foot water moccasin swimming there.
Not good.
And then
Not good at all.
Creepy. Then we went on vacation. We left the week before I turned 16. We were in Nebraska. There were signs up that says, watch for rattlesnakes. And my grandpa was like, no, it's too far north for rattlesnakes. They're generally down south. And so my sister is 2 years older than me. She was laughing, and she's like, if I see a rattlesnake, I'm going to push you at it, and I'm going to run away. Because that's what you do, is you pick on your siblings. And then she, like, let out this little, like, squeaky scream, turned and took off. And I was like, oh, you're so funny. And I took, like, 2 more steps, and then that's when I saw a rattlesnake that was curled up.
Boy.
In the middle of the pathway. And, like, it was ready to strike. I really am thankful that it didn't, because it was completely ready to strike. Like, even watching any shows with the snakes on now, it still freaks me out. Like, I just don't do
No
those.
wonder.
I'm not a fan of them either.
Now, Bill, why do you think the Holzer files were asking about insects? Or, I mean, is this something that's around hauntings or anything like that? Is it?
No, it's true, and I've had cases like that as well, to where people that were demonically affected, some totally possessed, there were large amounts of flies in the home and around the person, and so I can understand why they'd be asking that. And there are also certain other creatures that, you know, if they appear, they can be harbingers, and so that's probably, you know, they'd probably consulted with somebody and started asking the questions to Lydia, you know, are you seeing this? Are you feeling that? Is this manifesting? Has this been in the house? So I can understand why they would go with that line of questioning. They're just trying, at that point, they were trying to ascertain if, in fact, this was a demonic situation, which it was.
So, Lydia, the interview, 5 hours long. How do you think? How did you feel it went at the end of that?
It really freaked me out. To back up one more step, whenever they ask about the insects, I told them about those. Then they ask if there was any oil or markings on the wall that should not be there. I mean, like in a kitchen, you'll get grease that splashes up on the wall. Yeah. And I went in my bedroom, and on the north side of the wall, which is where the headboard used to be until I turned with my bed face, like the headboard's on the west side now, there was oil markings on the wall. And I took a photo and sent it to him. And then, like a couple days later, I went back in and I took more photos because that oil was spreading. And I would have never known to even look for insects or oil anywhere in the house. But it definitely shouldn't have been in my bedroom on the wall.
No, that's not a place you would expect to find grease or some oily marking, Bill. But I'll ask you then, in your experience, is that something you come across?
Yes, occasionally I have. And again, that's another mock of God. And what that is, so when I go into a situation like that, Kev, I anoint everybody's heads with a combination of holy oil, holy water, holy salt, and frankincense. And so that is a mock of God. It's presenting the oil, you know, somewhere on the wall or wherever it may be, that's mocking God.
So, Lydia, when you sent them the photographs, what happened then?
They they said that they would keep looking at those, and then I was also finding in my bathroom mirror, Jordan and Chase would never use the front bathroom at all. Chase said it freaked him out. He just refused to ever go in there. So they always came through the house, through my bedroom, and used my bathroom. And then I would leave on the weekend, and I would clean like my bathroom. I would clean the mirror. Nobody would be here at all. And I would come home Monday morning, and there would be what looked like a kid's handprint in the mirror.
Whoa.
And then,
Bill, not good. Not good.
No, it's not good. And I mean, this again, I've seen in many other cases, including the Intenzos, to where they had those little handprints on mirrors and mirrored tables and all that. So, and other cases as well. So, yeah, it does happen, and it happens often.
So do you think then you being in touch with the show, Lydia, really accelerated or accentuated the kind of stuff that you were going through? It kind of increased the activity?
I don't think it did until after I talked to the producer in March of 2019. Because when I say I wrote everybody that I had ever heard or seen on a paranormal show, I wrote everybody. I wrote the Dead Files probably 10 different times. I sent different photos to them. I found Dave Schrader's name whenever I was watching TV, and Ghost Adventures came on one time. But, I mean, I emailed Amy Allen. I emailed Steve DeShabi. I ended up meeting him in Columbia in 2018, but it was more just to meet him, not talk about paranormal, because he's a skeptic. And then I wrote everybody that Ghost Adventures. I think I looked for a haunting because I had seen the name on the TV guide. I wrote to anybody and everybody that I could find. I talked to priests here in town. Some of them wouldn't even listen to me. Others told me I just needed to pray more. I went to a metaphysical store and asked them if they could send me to anybody that could figure out why there was paranormal stuff happening here. And they gave me a white candle that was anointed in holy water that they had got from the Catholic Church in town. But even whenever I left them a message, I never heard back. And so I spoke to anybody and everybody that I possibly could, and they said to light the white candle and that it would help make everything stop, and to buy a protection bracelet that they also then anointed with holy water, but it just made everything worse.
Wow. Bill, what do you make of that?
Well, what I make of it is when a person has that level of attachment, and when demons are just absolutely dug into that person, it's a spiritual stronghold, and they're not leaving. They're not leaving just because a candle's being lit or something like that. They are not leaving until they are forced out. And the only way that they're going to be forced out is through an agent of God. And so, again, whether it's me or somebody else, by the power of God, the attack reverses. So I can't do what I do without the power of God working through me. Now, in knowing that the power of God is working through me, that makes me who I am as a spiritual warrior. So I have a shield here and a sword here. And when I go into these situations, I'm going into battle and I'm going in to win. And how can I say that? Because with God, it's always a win. So if I am committed to God, I'm committed to excellence. And if I'm committed to excellence, then I refuse to lose. And as part of being in that warrior mode, which is faith, strength, and courage, you have to eliminate the fear. So the best defense is a strong offense. Therefore, as the spiritual warrior, the agent for God, when I come into these situations, I'm the guy in charge. And it's by the power of God that makes me in charge and the bully on the block. Because when these entities are attached to people like Lydia, even myself and my own family, as a boy and many years ago, when these things happen, they're the bully. They are the bully on the block, and it is fear and intimidation tactics. It is bully tactics. It's divide and conquer tactics. So then it requires the agent for God to come through as the warrior, to be that type of, I guess, empowered one that now becomes the extractor and the bully, to come in and say, hey, you're gone. It's time to go. You're out of here. And by the power of God, I can say that. Again, do I claim that of my own? I would never do such a thing.
Bill, I can maybe attest to it definitely not being your own, because never forget, we can't prove anything, but only days after I said to my brother, if only we could have Bill been in his warrior angels here with us at Boleskine House, maybe he would sort this place, And a couple of days later, what happened? Second fire at the place. Now, I could never prove anything. However, I noticed patterns. You know what I'm saying? And you never take credit for the work you do. And I love that about you, Bill.
Never will.
But
never will.
Talk to me then about, what Dave said to you when he approached you. What was it that made Dave decide that he needed a Bill Bean in this case?
Yeah, he called me, and then he couldn't get me because I'm always returning calls, Kev. People, usually when they call me, they can't get me straight away because so many people call me. I have to leave my phone ringer off. And so he called me, and then he sent me a message, and I called him back, and he started explaining everything to me, and he was concerned. He said that, he felt that this was a demonic case, and this woman had some serious demonic stuff going on. And so I adjusted my schedule and talked with the producers from the show, and next thing you know, the date comes that we set a date, and the date comes and I'm on a plane flying out there to Lydia and to the shoot. And so I absolutely believe, based on the initial contact that I had from Dave, that he really could feel that it was a demonic situation and it was a serious situation. So that's how it began. And again, I'm overjoyed. I'm overjoyed that it went that way. I'm overjoyed that that God worked through me to help Lydia, and I'm overjoyed that she's doing well in her life now.
So, Lydia, the interview, how do you think the show went? Were you happy with how it played out?
I think that they tried to make it fit their agenda without scaring people. Because in the middle of the interviews, Dave asked if I felt like there was anything there. And I said that it felt like I was being stared at and something was watching us from the kitchen sink. And then he turned around and asked the guy that was sitting on my coffee table, because they had moved the couch to in front of my television, and we were doing the interview in the kitchen. He said, "Are you getting this on camera?" And the guy's like, "Yeah." We were already like 3 hours into the interview, and he had said that we're not going to pay attention to what's over there. But then it gave me 3 scratch marks across my neck. And those went away like within, somewhere between like 45 minutes to an hour. And he asked if I felt anything, and I was like, "It feels really warm." And then I took the 3 fingers without touching my neck, but I'm like, "It feels like it's here." Like whenever you blush and it gets warm in your cheeks, that's what it felt like. And that's they're like, well, exactly where you just put your fingers without touching your skin is where there's 3 scratch marks across your neck.
Wow. Now, did you send me a picture of that one, Lydia?
No, because that's whenever they were recording,
Okay.
and I didn't
Yeah,
get
so
to
it's
see
part of
like
their
all
property.
the footage. It's part of theirs, so I can't.
Yeah. No, I
Like,
totally
even other
understand.
stuff that they've
Yeah.
caught,
And
I
thank
haven't.
you. Thank you, because if I was to show that, I would probably get a copyright strike, and that wouldn't be good, Bill. But
Exactly, and I had sent Lydia a couple messages saying, "Don't worry, we're not going to do anything to infringe upon their copyright of their material. Absolutely not." So, everything that's been discussed here at this point is Lydia's story, and she is certainly entitled to tell her story. But in no way does it infringe on the Holzer files or the production company Painless or the Travel Channel in no way, shape, or form. And we'll keep
absolutely.
it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And Lydia, how was it from your point of view when Bill worked with you? Talk us through that, because you might not know this, but Bill's helped me in the past on air. I almost broke down. It's one of the most emotional kind of feelings I've ever had in my life. But how did you find Bill when he came into your life?
It was like a sense of relief, because so the Wednesday night we shot the interview, and then they continued to investigate till like 2:00 in the morning. And then I don't know if they accidentally called me or not, because my phone went off just after 2, and I tried to call them back and nobody answered, and I was like, okay. So then I just went back to sleep, and then the next night was whenever they called me and they said, Thursday, we weren't going to have you investigate with us, but we need you here. So I came in, and then they put me in the SUV, drove me up the street, came back, and I saw Bill, and I asked Aaron, the producer that I was talking to, who he was, and he's like, oh, it's just another production guy. Don't worry about him, But I was like, no, there's something different. And there was like 50 people here at least. I mean, there was.
She's telling the truth, Kev. It was a very large production crew.
Yeah.
I mean, my neighbors, there were so many cars here, and there generally is like nobody in the circle drive, nobody up the street that comes down and intersects with mine. There's generally 2 cars here, and there was cars on both sides of the road. The weekend before, my ex had actually called and threatened to kill me. So they had to have 2 security guards here, one that stayed in a vehicle down the street, one that walked around to make sure that he didn't come. There were people parked on both sides of the street going up the hill, people parked at the Circle Drive.
Production trailer set up.
It sounds like it sounds like the set for a Hollywood movie, Bill.
It was.
Is this the biggest production you've been a part of, Bill, do you think?
Yes, it absolutely was, and I've been a part of many of them, and this absolutely was the biggest.
So, sorry to interrupt you there, Lydia. I'm very bad at that.
Good.
Sorry.
You have a lot of questions, and that's what makes it more interesting to get more perspective.
Well, I'm just really keen for you to get your story out, because maybe I'm putting words in your mouth here, and you can correct me, but after the whole experience of the Holzer files, and you're only speaking for yourself here, I know, and were you happy at how it went?
No, I wasn't, because it felt like they were trying to put it as it was a poltergeist activity, that they did reveal to me that I have abilities that had laid dormant, and so those were starting to awaken. But they kept saying, well, it's your energy is leaving your body at night, and that's why it's moving things.
So wait a minute, Lydia. Just so they're telling you that you're leaving your own body, and for lack of a better term, you're beating yourself up?
Yeah. They will, and like even whenever they were going to have the new information released about each case that they did like a week ago. First, they wanted me to sign another release for an audio clip that showed up on my file. The only reason I even found this audio clip was because I was moving pictures to an SD card. And then after it's moved, there was a folder that said audio. And I clicked on that. And whenever I clicked on it, it played, like, so you click into the audio file, and then there is another file in there, and it just says unknown. Like, it was listed as unknown when generally it would have a date and time.
Yeah, exactly.
Like whenever you
almost like the metadata would be the title for it, right?
Right. But it was just capitalized unknown, and they wanted me to sign a new release and then send them that audio clip so that they could use it in this review of their previous cases. So they showed no new information, and then Cindy came on and said, well, there was a lot of activity, and Lydia was going through a lot of stress and trauma, but it was not demonic.
Whoa, now, Bill, I am not an expert in these cases, far from it. And, as somebody who's been working with the paranormal and dealing with it all your life for people who want to check out Bill's life story, what do you make of that conclusion? And again, Bill, none of us here are attacking the Holzer files. It's nothing like that. But what do you make of that interpretation? Because me, as a layman, I'm thinking, Lydia, it's like your typical horror movie. And it ain't no good thing at the end of it, you know?
Well, the good thing at the end was, and again, Kev, look, this is television. This is TV programming. So they have an agenda, and they have a predetermined outcome for how that show is going to go. It's just all there is to it. We've been here before talking about other episodes and other things that I've done. This is what they do. It's about entertainment. And look, no knock against them or anybody else. I am grateful, certainly to Dave Schrader, that he thought to get in contact with me to bring me there to help Lydia.
You see, that's what kind of gets me here, Bill. In one hand, you've got somebody who recognizes there's a problem. He calls you in.
Yeah.
And then at the end of it, almost, it's not quite as bad as we thought, and it's Casper the Friendly Ghost.
It goes right back to what I've just said. This is a narrative. So this was already predetermined. So perhaps Dave, being really concerned for Lydia, said, look, I've got to get Bill Bean involved in
I know
this.
what you mean. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
But I think in their minds, certainly in the production aspect of it, it was already predetermined how they were going to spin this. And no matter what happened to Lydia, this was going to be the final presentation of how it was to be because it fits their narrative for their TV series.
And, looking at it that way, you see, people, this is really important, There's one way you can look at that there, and then you have Bill talking like that, and you can see then that, there's a different way to view it because Dave, he obviously knows where the show's going. He does a show. Yeah. But he obviously is concerned about the person in the show and knows that Bill is somebody that can come along. And despite where the show wraps up and for ratings and everywhere else,
correct.
At least at the heart of this case, hats off to Dave then for bringing Bill in. So even I had viewed that the wrong way there, guys. So, I mean, I'd kind of thought, that's really lousy what they've done there. But now that I look at it another way, you see, it's really important you look at things from multiple directions, Bill, because that way you can maybe see what motives are. And that seems to be pure motives, right?
And that's why I said to you earlier, it is very difficult to blend reality into a TV production. Yeah. It's impossible because they're going to have their spin on it no matter what. And they're going to present it in the way that they're going to present it no matter what would have happened to Lydia. But again, no matter what they did and how they did it, and they didn't contact me, to be a part of this reboot or whatever it was. And the reason they didn't contact me is because I don't fit their narrative. So they already had their predetermined narrative, and it's a flashback with Lydia to say, oh, this, that, and then on to the next thing. Whatever the case may be, I really don't care. What I do care about is that Dave had the presence of mind, and obviously it was on his heart and spirit to contact me to help Lydia. And I'm thankful for that. And again, so it was a total blessing that God guided me there and worked through me to help her. And now I'm overjoyed to see that she's doing well in her life. And that's all that really matters to me.
Yeah. I think that was really cool because I hope the audience will, think about that as well. Multiple ways to view the same information. And if you just don't react, don't let your emotions kick in and think about it from different angles, what people's motives were, what their intentions were. And Lydia, despite how it played out, the one blessing in all of this is that Bill Bean came into your life, and with him, working through him, did that bring an end to this, or how's things now?
That did, and I'm thankful that the show came out and investigated, because there was evidence that proved I was not crazy or making it up.
Yeah.
I just didn't like the spin of it's Lydia herself, because they even so whenever they were in my room, Cindy said it felt normal, and then they started to leave, but before anybody had moved, Dave said he thought he heard footsteps, but it could just be the house settling. Now, this has been here, I've lived here for like 14 years, and it was here before I got here, so I would not think it was settling. But then they went into the boys' room where it's mainly Chase's right now. And while they were in there, and Shane Pittman, their tech guy, was in the hall, he heard footsteps. And he even shuddered on the show, because he's like, now the footsteps are on both sides of me. And then they put a recorder in, or an EMF detector in the boys' bathroom that Chase refused to use. He said it was creepy. He wasn't going in there. I repainted it, put up posters, and that child was still not going in that bathroom no matter what.
And to corroborate what Lydia's saying is that when I was first brought to the scene, which I think was the second night of shooting, and I had no interaction with Lydia at all. They were in there with her, and I was outside and watching this on a monitor.
Did you feel it? Usually, Bill, you can kind of sense it when you get there. Did you?
You're taking the words out of my mouth
sorry,
again.
Man,
exactly.
Sorry.
That's
man.
No, perfect. That's in sync. But that's what I was going to say, Kev. That even before I got out of the vehicle, the transport vehicle, I felt an overwhelming presence of evil there. And then in between the shooting, when they came out with her and she walked by, now again, at that point, she didn't know who I was. I really wasn't for sure who she was, but in my mind and spirit, God was telling me and showing me who she was, and I felt overwhelming evil on her. And I even told them that. But look, it is what it is. They spun it the way they spun it. We know the truth. We know what really took place. And we also know that God worked through me to take that garbage out and off and away from her.
And Lydia, what really disturbs me is the fact that it almost intimated or hinted that, your sons were getting bruised here as well. So they're kind of saying you're doing this in astral projection type stuff. I'm just kind of really glad that you came into contact with Bill. And listen, I really love having you a part of our KBS family as well. You've been a very good addition to the Discord. We love having you over there. But we don't roll like the TV shows on here, Lydia. And
right.
You've got the floor. You get anything out there that you want to get out about your story. And then we'll come back to Bill and we'll start to kind of wrap this up. But Lydia, we would never cut any of your story out. I've not been able to show all of your pictures, but you're not going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere. I do a lot of streaming. I'm sure we can hook up again when we get your Skype issues worked out. And the floor's yours, Lydia. And on behalf of the audience and Bill here, again, I really thank you for coming on the show here. I hope you leave tonight having had a better experience than you did with the TV crew. Not that we're better than them or anything like that, but we don't put ratings or figures or anything first. We put people first. And
Praise God.
Right.
yeah, you and your family, you're at the center of all of this. So I'm going to give the floor to you, Lydia, okay?
I mean, and at that point, so it started in 2017. So it was right before Chase turned 8. And I now have Chase sleeping back in my bed all the time. Jordan's staying at his aunt's pretty much all the time, especially at night. They won't use the front bathroom at all. Whenever they did put the EMF in there, they asked if there was something attached to me, and it went all the way up to red. And they show that on the episode. Then they ask if it was a human spirit, and it did nothing. And then they ask if it was evil, and it goes all the way back up to red again. And then it, it went to commercial. Then it comes back. Then they show it going up to red. And then I think it's Lydia herself. But if it's saying that it's, if you're getting hit saying that it's evil, that it's not human, and that it's attached to me, then how is it me, myself? I didn't understand that and how they could spin it that it was a poltergeist if I was at the hotel asleep when they were recording that.
That is, Bill, I'm like Lydia. I can't fathom how you make that connection from the information there. I watch too many paranormal shows, right? And I'm struggling to fathom how you come to that conclusion. I am.
If you have a predetermined narrative for what that episode is going to be, no matter what happens, it doesn't matter. It wouldn't have mattered if an entity would have manifested and started scratching and choking Lydia. It wouldn't have mattered. They would have presented that show in the same way that they did because they had a predetermined outcome and narrative for that show.
Yeah, I think it's that is the only way that it still doesn't make sense because we're coming from a place where we're
Not to us.
not
but
to us.
I mean,
Yeah, no, exactly,
yeah.
Bill, exactly. But when you come
They're trying to cater to an audience, I guess, that makes it a show.
When you think about it from a network perspective and viewers and then you've got influence from people you don't even know, the ones that are involved in your content. Lydia, I can only I'm not going to apologise for the Holzer files because I've nothing to do with them, but I'm just really glad that however it came about, and Dave was a big part of this, you coming into contact with Bill, I'm just glad that you were able to get rid of whatever it was that had attached itself
Praise
to your
God.
family,
It was absolutely demonic, Kev.
On you go, Lydia.
And I know that it was evil because, without even knowing that recording was there, which I have, and they had asked me to sign a new release in in May of this year so that they could play it for their look back at the case. And I ended up not sending the release to them. But I have that, and it just showed up on my file. But on September 13th of 2018, my grandma woke me up at 1:30 in the morning. And she was born in 1930. So she had gotten dementia. She went through colon cancer twice. She had lost a whole lot of weight. And when she woke me up, she looked like she did whenever I was in my late 20s, which I'm almost 39 now. So she woke me up, she gave me a hug, told me that she loved me, and said that she was going to help get somebody there and that she was going to help protect me. So the next morning, my dad called at 7 a.m., and I was already awake. And I answered the phone, and I said, "What happened to Grandma last night?" And that's whenever he told me that she passed a little bit before 1:30 in the morning.
Whoa.
So I know that that was her coming to tell me that she was going to help protect me right after she passed.
Wow. This is, Bill, I've had not one, but two, but three stories now. One that sticks in my mind is a guy called Jared from Wales. He works for something called Paranormal now on YouTube, and similar story. They were in the hospital. His brother was seriously ill, and his brother came out to visit them in the waiting room. Only Jared was the only one that could see him. And this is a really common story of loved ones that pass. And almost in that immediate moment, or the hours that follow, Bill, and I'll get your experience here, but you find often that these loved ones do go and visit people, right?
Yes, it is true. God does allow that. And again, the dangerous part of that is we just always have to be on guard for the devil who would try and impersonate our loved one in that way. But in cases like that, to where the person is getting ready to leave this earth, and we always pray that that person is going into God's heavenly kingdom, I many times, including in my own story, the loved one will visit or give a sign, or there'll be a manifestation, a smile, something, some type of blessed assurance that they're okay and they're going on to a far greater place than we can ever imagine. And I wish that for everybody, Kev. I want to see everybody going up and not down.
No, this is amazing, because it seems like two shows that should never connect. But yesterday's show with my good friends from Australia again connects, because in their culture, Bill, for the immediate kind of days after somebody passing, they tend not to use the name, because that keeps the spirit almost tied to this dimension, to the body, instead of moving back to the creator.
Yeah.
And you see, this is what happens on this show. And Lydia, you've helped bring this together. But
yeah, well, synchronicity.
It's amazing. It truly is. And Lydia, since you had that visit and everything else, how's your life now? I mean, how's everything now? Are you okay? Are you all over it? No problems?
Since Bill came out, everything has been really, really good. The house felt so much calmer and peaceful, and like there was a lot more light in here just in general. I know that my grandma still comes to visit sometimes. I think that my grandpa Houston was here to watch over us, but I can't always connect with him. And I got to talk to him right before he passed away, because he had cancer, and it went undiagnosed, lung cancer, for like 15 years. Grandma kept taking him to the doctors, and they're like, he's okay, or it's his diabetes. And then they finally found out that he did have slow-growing lung cancer, and he went through chemo and got over that. Then he went back for like his 1-month checkup and the 2-month checkup, and I think the 3-month checkup, and they said everything was good. And he didn't have to come back for a couple months, and then he went back home and got sick again. And then he was life-flighted down to Columbia to the hospital, and that was in 2003. And I got to, because I live in Columbia, and my oldest sister's not far from me, but she came in and told me at work, which we really were not talking at the time. And then I was working at McDonald's. They let me off, and I went to the hospital. So then me and her were still pretty much not on speaking terms, and my grandpa is like, you two need to figure this out and get over your differences, and, this is it. Like, this is going to be the end. I'm not going to make it. And we're like, no, you're going to be fine. Like, you already beat lung cancer once. It's all going to work out. You just have to know that it's going to work. And he's like, no, I know that it's not, and I'm not going to make it too much longer. And then they ended up having to put him into a medically induced coma so that they could do, I think it was a CAT scan, because he was shaking. And that's whenever they found out that the lung cancer came back, and it was the fast-growing kind instead of the slow-growing. And so I think it was like a week that they left him on life support, and we could go in and talk to him. Sometimes his throat would twitch, but I don't know if it's because that was just a reaction with his nerves or if it was really him. I remember him squeezing my hand one of the times, but again, I don't know if it was just like a nerve reaction, because he never came out of the medically induced coma, and they chose to let him go. So I think that's why he came back and talked to Jordan, because he told Jordan about the house that they had when I was a kid that they had torn down, told Jordan jokes that he told me when I was a kid. And it's like, I kind of believe that he had abilities. It was just never discussed. And I know that my grandma Bell had abilities. And again, that was never discussed. We grew up in a really small town. Like, paranormal wasn't really talked about. There was some, like, in the heritage books, it talks about, like, a lady in white, but everybody's like, oh, it's just hearsay, There's no such thing as ghosts. There's nothing on the other side. Like, so everybody is so skeptical even now.
Well,
it's not really talked
Lydia,
about at all.
You're in the right place now, and all I can say is thank you for coming on the Kev. Well, it's not even the Kev Baker show. I'm not used to saying that, Bill.
Yes, it is.
It's warrior mode, and Lydia, I only look forward to me and you having more conversations in the future. I thank you so much for coming on and sharing this tonight. Now, unfortunately, we need to move on because Bill's got a lot more to get into as well. But if you've got any final thoughts that you want to throw out there to the audience, then now's the time, Lydia.
Like, it's not something to ignore. You can't just ignore it and it's going to go away. What it's going to do is it's going to keep kicking up another notch and kicking up another notch. Then it's going to start talking to you. It mimicked my voice to Chase, and it mimicked his voice to me. And I would hear him screaming, "Mom," and I'd go in his room. He's playing Xbox with his headset on, and he's like, "Did you need something?" And I'm like, "No, it's okay." Or he would be in my bathroom, and he would hear me yelling at him from the living room, and he'd come out, and he's like, "Did you need something, Mom? I heard you yelling." And I was like, "I just wanted to check up on you," because I didn't want him to be scared anymore. But if you just ignore it and don't try and get help, it's not only going to attack you, it's going to start attacking the people that you love, and it'll put them in jeopardy. Like, it starts with one, and it tries to get you divided.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was like I left, and after the surgery, I worked 4 hours a day, and then I came home, and I didn't want to go out. I didn't want to talk to people. Like, it just puts you further and further down, and then you start feeling like you're being watched. You start seeing stuff out of the corner of your eye. You'll hear it start telling you things like, if you just hit that barrier. You won't have to worry about this anymore. And it tries to tempt you to want to take your own life, or then it'll attach to somebody that you love that maybe may not be as mentally strong, and it will work on hurting them and tearing them down or wanting them to hurt somebody else. So you can't just ignore it and hope it goes away, because it won't.
Correct.
Until you actually get help, it just gets worse and worse. And it wasn't like my mom was the only abuser I had. Then it was like guys that I dated were abusive. And then I would leave one, which takes forever to even want to leave. And then you would, I'd be single for a while and everything would be okay. And then there would be somebody else, and they're like, oh, I'm a nice guy, blah, blah, blah. And then it was like you would just be right back into a different type of abusive relationship.
Right,
and
it's a pattern of abuse.
Yeah. Well,
And it's
Lydia,
like if it can't control you, it'll control somebody else. But now everything's great. I'm learning my abilities. I'm engaged to Eric, and he's understanding of all of this. And it's just really well. And then sometimes I'll help my friend Brett, find information about cases. Like if I hear somebody's voice, I can help that way. Or if I see somebody's picture, I'll pick up on different stuff. Or
Lydia,
sometimes I'll just find somebody who's troubled, and then most of the time I just refer them to Bill.
yeah, that's what I do as well. But Lydia, I can't thank you enough for coming on today. And yeah, you stay in touch with Bill, and Bill's going to keep you right. And obviously, we're going to be in touch on Discord. You've got me 24/7. I've got you on there, and we'll get you back on. Me and you we'll discuss this further. We'll be able to get you on the Skype. We'll get you on camera. We'll do a stream. We'll do a Kev Baker show. But Lydia, thank you so much for coming on. And I hope the audience really pay attention to what Lydia said there, because I think that's really important. And I second it entirely. If you think something's going on, don't just put it off. Pay attention to it, and don't think it's just going to go away. So, Lydia, I think that is brilliant advice. I really do.
Well, I mean, and I probably talked to at least 30 people, minimum of 30 people, before Dave and them said, okay, we're going to look into this more. And I'm really glad that they came out and got their stuff recorded that they did, and brought Bill to take everything away that was negative. And then it was me learning how to control my energy, because I can affect stuff. I did glitch out 2 of the 7 cameras that they had recording when I was yelling about trauma as a child. So it's like purging everything negative and just filling yourself back up with light and love. And of course, I do Bill's warrior prayers all day, every day.
Praise God.
You see, that'll keep you right. Even when I'm getting down, the old warrior prayer comes out. But Lydia, I'm going to thank you for coming on. And you stay in touch. We've got you on the Discord. I'm sure you'll be in the chat room on YouTube to listen to the rest of the show. But thank you so much for coming on today, okay?
All right, thank you.
Much love, and God bless you, Lydia and Eric and your children. And keep moving forward. And thank you, Lydia. Keep moving forward in warrior mode. I'm so proud of you, and I want you to just keep moving forward.
Thank you so much. God bless you guys as well. And we will chat again soon, I'm sure.
Absolutely. There we go.
There we go again, Kev.
Bill, we're even saying the same dang thing at the same time now. We need to stop this, brother. And, yeah, I thank you as well, Bill, because that really taught me a lesson there, because part of me was thinking, wow, Lydia is really a victim, not at the hands just of paranormal activity, but, this production team as well.
Correct.
But you see, and it's so important for the audience, because there's so much information that we're all looking at on a daily basis, and it's easy just to react and focus on that initial kind of way of looking at something. But you totally shifted how that played out there. And it's so important, Bill, right? Because, and it might sound kind of surface level, but it's not, because we're all seeking answers. We're all looking at information daily, and it is so easy to react from the heart before we engage the mind and have a think about how things are playing out, and totally shift your perspective of one piece of information just by pausing and thinking about it. And
Yeah.
that's so important, folks, that you think for yourself. Before we discuss Lydia's case, you know, this is about you, not about me, not about Bill. We're all looking at info. You wouldn't be here if you weren't. And everyone you listen to, it's so easy. I do it myself. You take it, and your initial way of reading it can really slant the way you look at something. But
Yeah.
pause and just think about it, and think, is there another way I could look at that is just as relevant? How can the truth be multiple things? Well, it can. It just depends what perspective you take on it. So I really think there's a valuable lesson, aside from Lydia's story, Bill, and it's so common. And I'm just glad you got involved with her to help her out, because I can tell she's a nice girl. Really nice.
Yes, very nice. Yeah,
yeah.
there we go again. It's amazing.
This is getting weird
Yeah.
now, Bill.
Yeah, I'm telling you. But she, I really should have talked more about the deliverance itself, because that was powerful. I'm telling you, that was, and that too was very awkward, because the TV show asked me if I could do a condensed version of this deliverance exorcism for her, and I said, absolutely not. I cannot. I'm real, and the power bestowed upon me by God is real. So I can't deviate from how God works through me to help people, for no one. And so that was a little awkward, in the sense that the producer said, okay, well, we'll cut the shot with you saying a couple of prayers over her. And it probably wasn't 2 prayers, it was probably 1, and they cut the shot. And then the production crew wanted to wrap. Now, we're in a church, and the production crew wanted to wrap up, and I asked them to leave the room, because, and this was the main church hall, because I could not possibly focus on performing this spiritual deliverance exorcism over this woman with, 30 or more people in the room breaking down equipment. And so they left the room. And so God worked through me, and it was very powerful, because again, she had a high level oppression that was leading, in my opinion, it wouldn't have been much longer, it was leading into a possession. And so this required, me, by the power of God working through me, to really have to focus and not have any distractions or interruptions or anything like that as I'm trying to help this woman. So thank God it worked out that way as well. And they honored my wishes and stayed out of there until the deliverance was complete. And it was very powerful. And you could feel those things leaving her as the power of God is working through me to bind and rebuke and cast them out.
You had contacted me from the case.
Yeah.
You had said to me, A, what a production this is, and B, what a case it was as well,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so she had a lot going on, and for many, many years, and then it got to the point to where it was severe for her and for her children. And so the bottom line, Kev, is that I'm thankful. No matter how they put their spin on it and presented it, who cares? The bottom line is she got help, and God worked through me to provide that help for her. She's doing very well in her life now, and her children as well. You heard her say that she and Eric are engaged, and she's going to get married. Wonderful. This is all wonderful stuff.
Exactly.
So I couldn't be happier for her. Praise God for that. And again, I say thanks to my friend Dave Schrader for reaching out to me out of concern for her to make this all possible in the first place.
And she's got 24/7 support over in the KBS Discord server. And we've got a couple of hundred people in there. Lydia has
Praise
been
God.
a very good fit. Yeah, it's good fun. It's almost like our own little support group over
Well,
on
it's
Discord.
all win-win.
Yeah.
It's win-win, and we are in it to win it, because if we are truly keeping God first, and if we know that God's with us and for us, who can stand against us?
Exactly.
No one. Nothing.
And Bill, you know, you are on here with me every week, right? And I love hanging out with you. But you also take part in one of the biggest radio shows in the world, brother. And you're going to be back on there this week, right? Coast to coast, man.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Kev, because I'd forgotten about it.
You
So
see, I've got
there
your
you
back,
go.
man. You see, I'm the hostess
Yes,
with the
you do.
mostess. Yeah.
You got it, and I'm glad you mentioned it, and it was a real pleasure. It was something different. You know, usually I'm on with George Norrie. He's a good friend of mine, and we've had many shows together, and big shout out to him and to Tommy D, the executive producer for Coast to Coast, very good friend of mine. And this time Tom contacted me and said, we want to do something a little different. George would like for our colleague Cheryl Jones, who is the investigative reporter for Coast to Coast now, to interview you for her series. This is a radio show that she is doing with George Norrie. And so it was great. It was a pleasure. She's a wonderful lady, very, very educated, and very, very awake on the things that are taking place in the world. And so it was a real pleasure to have talked with her and have done the interview, which she says that it's going to happen this Thursday, the 25th. And that will air on Coast to Coast AM on the Thursday, the 25th. And hopefully after that, they will release some type of replay or something. If they do, then perhaps we can get it out there. I'll either put it on my site or the YouTube channel, and you and I can talk about it. But it went great. It was a great interview. They've had to condense it down a little bit. I heard from the producer, her producer, earlier today, Kevin, that they had to edit it down due to the amount of time, because we just went on and on and on. But they have got it to where now it will be a very good production. And when it airs on Thursday the 25th, I have no doubt that it'll be great. So big thank you to Cheryl, and of course my good friend George Norrie and Tommy D.
And if George is ever needing a week off, tell him there's a really cool Scottish guy that will happily take his seat. No, Coast
I've
to
already
Coast,
mentioned that to Tommy D.
brother. Coast to Coast for me, my own personal story. When I started to wake up, it was one of the first things I came across that was tackling subjects that really, it just got my mind going. It caused me to think about all the things that I thought were real in the world. And, you know, I can't thank people like George Norrie and George Knapp, two of the main hosts I listen to on there. And there's even shows that now, 1,300 shows in, there'll be information that I put out there that I absolutely got from those early days listening to Coast. And not every show is going to be something that people like, but I'm the same as well. You know, not every topic I cover is something that people like, but you've got to be open-minded, and you can't just reject something or judge somebody on one thing. And as far as Coast to Coast goes, I think George Norrie, you know, if there is such a thing as the truth community, you know, he's helped to set thousands of us on our way, not to believe in everything he says, but to questioning some of the things that we've always known. So that there, I tell you what, if you look at somebody's life, if they've done something good, George Norrie, I think, all in, that's one good cat. And I wish him all the success. And he's number one for a reason. You know, a good guy,
No
real good guy.
And you know, off camera, he's a very good guy as well, and very nice and kind and polite. And
nobody's ever got a bad word to say about George Norrie.
No.
He's just that one of those guys. He's the real deal.
And you see him on that show, Ancient Aliens, from time to time as well.
Oh,
You know,
don't mention
he's
Ancient Aliens to me, Bill. Oh, don't mention that to me. I had the woke brigade trying to cancel me during the week because I defended Ancient Aliens. It's a long story. I've gone over it ad nauseum. But brother, Lydia's story, it was another one of these cases where we're dealing with dark forces. But we're going to talk about something completely different now. Something positive, something uplifting. It's a throwback to the recent past and a simpler time. A time when things were a lot more wholesome, a lot more loving, a lot more godly, if you want to call it that as well. And this might seem totally out of left field, but we're going to be talking about the Little House on the Prairie, Bill.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, it is out of left field in a sense, but in a sense it's not, because of the current times that we're in. And what brought this about, you know, there's a TV channel called Up TV. I watch very little TV, and I'll go out there with my wife, and I'm probably reading a book while she's watching TV, and she will have this on, and this Little House on the Prairie show is on Up TV, and as a matter of fact, they're having a marathon of it right now. And it almost brings a tear to your eye, Kev, that, boy, back then, not that it was a perfect time, but those people had it right. The way that they lived and the way that they went about their lives, and they were selfless. They were not selfish at all. They did for one another. They loved their families. They loved their community. They loved their neighbor. It was a time of goodness. So I'll read this little thing here that I came up with, and if anything, I hope that it makes some people feel good. I wish and I pray that we could get back to a time, you know, we'll never live in a time like that, but maybe we could get back to some of those ways of life and some of those ideals and some of those thought patterns, because if we did, life would suddenly become very, very good again. So, Little House on the Prairie was an American Western historical drama series starring Michael Landon, Melissa Gilbert, Karen Grassley, and Melissa Sue Anderson. It was about a family living on a farm in Plum Creek near Walnut Grove, Minnesota in the 1870s. And it went through to the 1880s and 1890s as well. The show is an adaptation of Laura Ingalls Wilder's best-selling series of the Little House books. Television producer and NBC TV executive Ed Friendly became aware of the story in the early 70s, and he had contacted Michael Landon and asked him to direct the pilot movie. So there was going to be a pilot movie, and then they would launch this series. Landon agreed on the condition that he would also play the lead part of Charles Ingalls. And so that's how that all came about. And the regular series was preceded by the 2-hour pilot movie, which did very well. And it aired on March 30th, 1974. Think about that, Kev. That's 2 years before you were born.
I know.
And the pilot was based again on Laura Ingalls Wilder's third Little House book in the series called Little House on the Prairie. And the series itself premiered on the NBC network on September 11th, 1974, and it ran until May 10th, 1982. And I can tell you, Kev, as a little boy, I remember watching that show quite a bit. And the show's central characters, again, were Michael Landon's character, Charles Ingalls. He was a farmer and a mill worker, his wife, Caroline, and their 3 daughters, Mary, Laura, and Carrie. And then the family expands throughout the seasons with the birth of daughter Grace and adoption of son Albert in season 5. So you see the family expanding as the seasons and years go on. Little House explored many different themes, including frequently portrayed ones of adoption, alcoholism, faith, poverty, blindness, and prejudice of all types. Some plots also included subjects such as drug addiction, leukemia, child abuse, even rape. And although predominantly a drama, the program has many lighthearted and comedic moments as well. It surely did. It's great to see these reruns now. I mean, they're having this marathon right now on Up TV, and it really makes you feel good to sit down and watch this. So I urge the people out there that are watching us right now to tune into that and see if that doesn't lift your spirits a little bit. So again, why am I talking about this? Because of seeing it, like I just said, and it just really took me to a better place and helped me to feel better just looking at something and taking in such goodness. People had a completely different mindset back then. They loved God first, and they cared for each other. They worshiped together. They helped one another. They took pride in their family and community. They had strong morals. They were respectful of others and trustworthy. You know, back then a man's word was his bond. And life wasn't perfect for them, as they had to work very hard just to be able to get by. It was a tough way of life. And they certainly didn't have the technology that we have today. They had no technology to speak of at all. And certainly I feel it was a good thing for them, because I feel that we are enslaved by our technology today. Again, the people worked hard, they lived modestly, they were committed to God and family. And I think that the overall message of that show throughout the series was to treat others as you would want to be treated. And I've said this over and over again over the last several weeks, and I'll continue to say it. That sums up everything. Treat others how you want to be treated. And if you can do that, suddenly the world becomes a better place. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to issue a challenge to all of you. I am issuing this challenge to see if you have the resolve to follow what I'm going to say. And if you do, perhaps this will affect others in a positive way, and they may they apply this to their lives as well. Because again, if we can do this, we will contribute to making our world a better place, person by person. So I challenge you to make God first in your life. I challenge you to be selfless. I challenge you to be committed to excellence. And that means that if we are committed to God in that strong way, we are committed to excellence. I challenge you to go out of your way to be a blessing and help others in some way, shape, or form, always. I challenge you to do the best that you can do and be the best that you can be in each and every day of your life. And if you are up for this challenge, then I can assure you that God will bless you and help you to be blessed and victorious in all of your ways. So that's pretty much all I have to say about that, Kev, and then we can wrap it up with our prayer, and then we'll be ready, looking forward to next Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, I remember not so much Little House on the Prairie, but I remember watching the Waltons growing up.
Same thing, yeah. Yes.
Very much the same thing.
Yeah.
You know,
You won't find those kind of shows anymore, brother.
And as time has gone on, you know, we really have compare that kind of program to your top kind of network shows now.
Oh,
It's night and day. It really is. The change is
Truly is.
unbelievable. And I often say to my mum, you know, imagine we could bring Gran back, my mum back, to look at what's going on today. That wasn't
and
that,
Pearl.
yeah, and that wasn't that long ago she was around, you know, but the change that has happened, even, I mean, I can't remember the 70s. You mentioned I was born 76. I can remember like mid-80s onwards.
Yeah.
But the changes between then and now, and I think anyone that's been born really post 2001, I can't put myself in their shoes because I can still remember the world the way it was, Bill. Just coming out of that more kind of wholesome age. And I remember...
I was born in 1966, so I remember the 70s well.
I remember a time when there was only two genders and heterosexuality was the in thing, and, you know, times have changed big time, right? It's almost upside down.
A telephone that you had to it was a rotary dial.
I-
So the phone was on the wall, and it was a rotary dial like this.
Let-
And then they went to the push button phones.
And on that, I mean, we used to remember phone numbers all the time.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
multiple numbers right now. Oh, not so much. But Bill, I have this conversation a lot, and I'm going to ask you. So, put yourself in a room with your wife and your friends, and it's 1990, and you're maybe listening to some music or you're watching a TV show, and you hear somebody or you see somebody that you recognize, but you maybe can't place their name or what you've seen them in before, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays, it's simple enough. We go to Google and we Google it.
Yeah, couldn't do that back then.
How did but we managed. We got on.
We did manage.
We didn't come to a grinding halt. Yet
Nope.
look at how our minds, at the same time as the world, have totally changed. You know, it's even hard to comprehend how that conversation finishes now, right?
It's like a whole different world, Kev.
Isn't
When I
it?
look back
Isn't
on
it?
it was like a whole different existence.
Yeah, I mean, if you didn't have a piece of information, we didn't immediately run out of our way to go down to the library or source the information. But now that it's at our fingertips, we just do that and then we let that think for us. And
Yeah.
it's almost like, well, how did we get along then when we didn't know the name to the person we were looking for? Or how did we get that information? It never bothered us back then, you know?
No, and it was a
It's
much
weird,
bigger
isn't
world
it?
back then.
Yeah, it's weird. Do you see where I'm coming from, though? It's a weird
I
thought,
agree.
right?
It's very strange. And again, to me, it just seems like a whole different world. Just thinking about a TV set back then, you didn't have a remote control. You had to go over and,
Yep.
and it was like a very heavy channel selector, a dial. You had to turn it manually like that. And there were only 3 channels back then.
Yeah.
3 channels. And then they added a 4th, and that was sometime later. But that was it. And those channels were kind of snowy.
And now, Bill, and now that there's 100, people often say to me, and yes, Mum, I'm going to shame you here, nothing to watch tonight. I can't find anything to watch. There's a bajillion channels.
Yes,
But our
and nothing to
brains,
watch.
yeah, the way we think, they have changed us. We've all changed. We've evolved over that short period of time, Bill. And the technology's a double-edged sword. Because look at us.
I agree.
We're taking advantage of it here. We wouldn't be talking to all of these people the way that we are. And
Right, so there's a blessing in that.
I love my technology. I really
Sure.
do. And for a long time, I focused on the negative of it. But I think we have to be more positive about everything. And, you know, we
It's
have
that frequency and vibration
Yeah.
thing.
Absolutely. And we have to recognize that there's entrapments in the technology, absolutely, but we have to
Yeah.
use it to our advantage as well. Because from your point of view, from the Christian point of view as well, I mean, it hasn't been wiped out. So there is reason for us to use it to our advantage, right? And there's good
Oh,
things
no,
that
I
come.
agree.
Yeah, there's good things that come from the technology as well. And for
The
every
bad thing about it, Kev, is this. Now, I want you to think about this. What we're doing, is a blessing. And when we are researching for knowledge and empowerment, blessing. But when we make that phone an idol, and now it becomes such a part of our life that if you were to take the person's phone from them, some people would flip out. They'd panic. They wouldn't know what to do. It's like you'd be taking their whole life from them. That's the dangerous side of technology.
Yeah, there absolutely is. And even my time working with Anthony Patch, the amount of technology that comes from the kind of same magic and dark force that you see throughout history, it's kind of weird. I can't ever get away from that. And when you look at this evil system, if you want to look at the one way we can go, because I still think, Bill, that we can win here. I don't think it's
When God's in it, it's always a win.
yeah, I don't think it's predetermined that we lose, and I think we all have to keep optimistic and always see that victory on the horizon. But I don't think we should maybe, or me personally, I used to focus so much on the negative side of everything, when really, in reality, there's two sides to it. And I think you would agree with me here. There's enough for us to be concerned about, and enough darkness in the world as well, where we need to bring some kind of balance to that, and some light side into that as well. And I think that's what we try and do here on a Sunday.
We
I really
always want to
do.
leave people uplifted.
Yeah, we go to the
and
darkest
inspired and
corners.
motivated.
We
Yeah,
do.
yeah.
We go right to the darkest, but at the same
Yes.
time, I think it's important that we uplift people and leave them on a positive note, and that's something we try to do every week. And I think Lydia left the audience with a really important message tonight. That
I
if
think
you,
so
yeah,
too.
that if you do think you are, being targeted or victimized by anything, otherworldly or out with your control, recognize it and try and deal with it, be it whatever way, approaching Bill or whatever you decide to do. And you always try every week to go out on a high note as well, Bill. So I'm going to hand it over to you now to do that.
And you're
very
right,
thing.
Kev. We talk about some of these disturbing things, but we always, by the power of God, working through us, bring it back and steer it back to the positive. So we will leave everybody every week uplifted, feeling great, and having your frequency and vibration raised on high. We will accomplish this each and every week by the power of God that is within us and upon us.
Absolutely, brother. And Paranormal Portal in the chat room, big shout out to you, brother. He's on TFR with us. He's good. Glad to see we're back on the main channel here. And this video, for anyone who might have tuned in late, it'll be going over to Bill Bean's main channel, and I'll drag that up on the screen here now. But Bill, I'll give the floor to you for the last words, and we'll wrap it up. And anything you want to get. I don't know if there's any specific people that have prayers you want to get out for, anything like that.
Well, I'm thankful, and yeah, I want to pray again for our good friend Jim Marinos out there at San Francisco. Great man, love him dearly. He's getting ready to have some surgery on his heart, and we pray for Jim and ask God to bless him and heal him quickly. My good friend George Geis that we prayed for on the show last week, got some really good news for him. And he is cancer-free, and we praise God for it. Thank you, Father. And so this is why it's so important that we pray for people, because God does hear our prayers, and he does work miracles for people. So as long as I have a breath in my body, I will continue to pray for anybody and everybody that wants and needs prayer.
Absolutely. And I know from first-hand experience, if you need Bill, all you have to do is reach out to him. If he can't get to you physically, he'll sort you out on Skype, and he's worked wonders with me and my family. And yeah, my brother, he continues to ask for you as well.
Ken.
Yep, exactly. And I've had a blast again. I'm really glad that we managed to get Lydia onto the show.
Yes.
Yeah.
Went fantastically, and we praise God for it. And we'll have to do this more often, Kev. Maybe we can get some of the other people that have had these experiences that God's worked through me to help. Maybe we could get some of them on the show as well in the future. And, some people are coming to mind.
I have to thank you because Steve Hodgson, he has been a really good addition to my life. And I don't know if he's listening right now, but I love when he gets in touch with me. We don't agree on everything either, but like me and you, not important,
right?
Because there's bigger games in town than the
That's
minutiae
correct.
that
Love
we can.
him and Jen. They're wonderful people.
Brilliant people. Yeah, I had them on now twice, and I look forward to having them on again. But Bill, we spoke last week about maybe getting the audience to be a little more interactive, and we like looking at real crime, stuff like that. Now, I'm not
Yeah.
sure if anyone's already got in touch with you with any cases.
Yes, a few have. Laura Calhoun, Kathy Smith, and some others have sent me their suggestions, and great suggestions for some topics. And
Well, give us two of them then, Bill, and what we'll do is we'll tell the audience one or two, and then they can answer us, and we'll go that direction. So
one is Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker.
oh, nice. I don't mean
Yeah.
nice guy. I don't mean nice guy, but good case.
Yeah, he was an
Yeah.
evil individual
Yeah.
for sure. And there were so many of them. Another one, I guess, was John Wayne Gacy, the clown killer there.
Okay, then. So number one for the Night Stalker, and number two for Gacy. So it'll take about 20 seconds for that to come in to the chat room, Bill. Let people know when you're going to be on Coast to Coast again as well.
Yeah, and that's coming up on the 25th, this coming Thursday, June 25th. And really looking forward to that airing, because it is going to be something different and fresh and new, to where my good buddy George Norrie's not interviewing me on this one. It is Cheryl Jones, and I'm very much looking forward to hearing what the finished product on that is, and I'm sure it'll be outstanding.
So I'm just waiting for this to come through on the chat room, but I'm looking forward to hearing you with somebody else as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and under the banner of Coast to Coast. So I mean, it's going to be very interesting, and maybe one day George Knapp, I'll have an interview with him. We'll see how that shakes out. But
big time. Well, it would make sense, because George Knapp is somebody that's worked with the Skinwalker case.
Yeah.
You're somebody that was contacted about that, so I don't see why that would be a problem at all,
It may come to pass one day soon. And I'm reading a very interesting book right now, Kevin. This is something else that we can feature on the show one week.
Don't think I'm ignoring you, Bill. I'm just keeping an eye on all these ones and twos, okay? Okay,
Not
I'm
at all.
listening to you, brother. I've got you in here. I've got you.
This book is by Colonel Fletcher Prouty, who he's deceased now. He was a very high-ranking colonel in the Air Force, I believe it was, and he was connected to the shadow governments. And Oliver Stone wrote the foreword to the book, and another foreword was written by Jesse Ventura, and it talks about the perceived way that on his part, and this is not just his wildest imaginations or whatever. I mean, he had contacts in the shadow community that talk about the how and the why and the who that were responsible for the assassination of President Kennedy. So again, written by Colonel Fletcher Prouty, and a very interesting book so far, and maybe it's something that we could have on the show in the future.
Absolutely. Very famous name, very famous book as well. And it's looking like the clown, Gacy.
Really?
Yes, it is, yes.
Okay.
It's looking
I'm
that way.
surprised by that. I thought it would be the other way around.
More number twos than number ones.
Okay, well, we'll have to feature that story maybe, I don't know, very soon or next week if you wanted to. I'll put something together, and we can dig into that next week.
Absolutely. Bill, we've got many weeks ahead of us.
Oh.
We're going to cover everything and then some. And
No question about it.
to everyone out there, thank you so much for tuning in
But don't
today.
leave us yet, Kev. We gotta do the prayer, and then we'll sign off.
Absolutely. But I just want to thank everyone for tuning in today, because this has been a long one. This has been one of our longer ones, Bill.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
a big thank you to Lydia as well.
Yes.
Because
Absolutely.
especially after the way things went on the TV show, I would imagine she's probably a bit tentative about going anywhere with her story now. And I appreciate there's probably lots more to Lydia's story, but that's okay. That's why I'm here. I go live every day, and we'll get more on that. But again, special thank you to all of you for tuning in every week.
Absolutely.
Because time's precious now, and it really does mean the world, both to me and Bill, that you do come here. And if you want to find the back episodes of this, all you got to do is go over and search for Bill Bean right here on YouTube. And on there, you will find every single one of the shows that we have done. And let me tell you, there's some really good shows in there. And this one, after we finish, it'll go onto Bill's channel. You can find Bill Bean's website at billjbean.com. And Bill's no one special. And what I mean by that is, don't think that you can't approach him, because he'll get right back to you. Even if it turns out that your problem isn't something Bill can handle, he'll be the first one to tell you. He's not going to blow smoke up your tuchus. He's as honest as I am. A spade's a spade in Bill's life, and I like that honesty, and I'm sure we'll all really benefit going forward with this show, because Bill, we are going into some crazier times. We ain't seen nothing yet. I really do
agree.
think that 2020's been a roller coaster so far, but I still think that this has just been a warm-up for more to come.
I'm with you 100%, brother. I agree with you totally. And so what we have to do, again, for me, I can't tell you what to do, nor do I want to, but for me, I'm going to continue to make God first in my life. I'm going to continue to be committed to him. And in turn, he's going to continue to bless me and keep me safe and keep me empowered and help me and work through me to help others. So that is my game plan. I will not deviate from it, and I praise God for it.
Take us into the prayer, Bill.
All right. And again, like Kev said, thank all of you so much for hanging with us for so long. This definitely has been one of our longer shows, and I appreciate all of you staying with us. And I want everybody just to relax now and just let yourselves go and close your eyes and think about anything that's been bothering you, or things that have taken place in this week that have not been good. You know, if it's been a stressful, rough week for you, if you're under spiritual attack, don't hesitate to contact me for help. But I want you to really just focus on all these things right now. Close your eyes and focus on them, and I'm going to pray. Father, I thank you and praise you for this blessed and appointed time. And I ask that you bless everyone out there that is tuning in right now, and everybody that is stuck with us through the entirety of this show. And help them, Father, please, with whatever it is that they may be needing. Whatever it is that they're going through, I pray that you'll bless them and help them to overcome it. And I also pray, Father, that they will turn to you and decide to make you first and accept your Son, Yeshua Jesus the Christ, into their lives. I ask as you bless them with an abundance of love, peace, joy, good health, and prosperity for life. I ask that you bless their coming in and bless their going out, and make their enemies to flee from them in 7 different directions. And by your mighty power, Father, in your mighty and holy name, in Jesus' name, I bind and break the power over Satan and all of his demons, all of his fallen angels, all of his unclean spirits, all of his demonic powers and principalities, and all of his curses, hexes, vexes, spells, strongholds, and curses, bloodline curses, family bloodline curses, all ungodly soul ties, all legal rights, and anything and everything that the devil and his minions have built over anyone and everyone out there. By your mighty power, Father, in your mighty and holy name, in Jesus' name, I declare it broken off of them. And I ask that you keep them in your hedge of protection 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for life. And I ask that you work through these people to be a blessing to others and a shining example of your love, mercy, and goodness. Father, we give you the praise and the thanks and the glory for everything forevermore. In Jesus' name it is so. Thank you. Well, that'll wrap it up again for another week, Kev.
Phenomenal, brother. Absolutely phenomenal. I'm so glad we ended up teaming up. I really am. All those years ago. Big shout out to Laura. I tell you, everything for a reason, Bill. And if I may, just before we wrap up, for people tuning in tomorrow, we've got a big week starting on the Kev Baker Show. We have got Charlie Robinson coming up tomorrow. He is going to be our first guest on the Monday. Then on the Tuesday, we've got Nano Girl. On the Wednesday, we've got Kevin from Minnesota. And on Thursday, We have got Scotty Lopez, uncut, uncensored, unplugged, no algorithms, and we'll be taking everything to task on KBS this week, right here on the channel. And if you are wondering where we've gone, you might just be coming back to KBS 1 thinking, wow, not much happening here on the channel. We're over on KBS 2. We're doing all of our paranormal, ancient exploration, woo type content over there. And if you're looking for somewhere to hang out, have some fun, and get into some really mind-bending mysteries and ancient woo and all the kind of content that makes you go woo, X-File type stuff, KBS2, check it out, subscribe over there. And Bill, I'll be listening to you on Coast to Coast this week. And it's been another good week, brother. And I look forward to Gacy. I don't like clowns, but I'm going to do it.
Nor do I.
No, they're creepy, man. Next
Yeah.
week is going to be brilliant, brother. So thank you again for your time this week, Bill.
I thank you. We had another great show. And again, much love and God bless to you and your family and everyone out there. We look forward to next week and having you all back with us again for another interesting week to come, for sure.
Be sure, check us out, same time, same place, next week. Until then, God bless and take care.